In reading Media and Cultural Studies by Durham and Kellner, based on chapters 1 through 6, this is what I received, and this is my video journal. Number 1, money is power. That's the central idea in all the readings, within all the writers. Money is power. And what is power? Power deals with the control of ideas, the control of the culture, and the control of the language. And I say money is power because in chapter 1, in The Ruling Class and the Ruling Ideas by Karl Marx and Engels and Frederick Engels, it says the class which is the ruling material force of the society is at the same time its ruling intellectual force. And then it goes on to say the class which has the means of material production at its disposal also controls the means of mental production, so those who lack means of mental production are on the whole subject to it. So basically it's saying if you are in a position of power, if you are in a position where you can control something, whether it be the media, food, clothing, then if you're in that position, then you can control what people think about whatever the product is. And it goes on to say if you have the means of the material production, you have the means of the mental production. So however you want it to be made, it's going to be made because you're in control. And I will even go a step further and say this is why education is so important, because if you do not know what's going on in your society or what's going on in your community, then you're subject to, yes, you are subject to those who are in power. But if you have more education and you know how things work, then you might not necessarily have to do what everybody wants you to do that's in power. Moving on to Antonio Gramsci and him talking about the subaltern classes. He said the subaltern classes, they're ununified and they're not together. Subaltern classes, they're subpar. These are classes that are not in power. Of course, poor people and minorities. He said in order for them to basically have a voice, they must unite. So poor people, any minorities or any groups that are marginalized, then they must unite and become a state in order to have a voice. Antonio Gramsci said, the supremacy of social groups manifests itself in two ways, as the domination and as intellectual and moral leadership. And this just goes back to what Karl Marx and Frederick Engels said when they when they wrote about those who have the means of material production also having the means, controlling the means of mental production. So not only do they dominate, but they control intellectual and moral leadership. So whoever's in power, whether it be a media company, a clothing company, they implement and they infuse ideas into the society. And whether we realize it or not, we're subject to those. And we operate on those ideologies. Another thing I wanted to speak on was Horkheimer and Adorno in the part about the culture industry. And everybody knows the culture industry. If I had to define it, it would be the industry that gives our culture, or the American culture, the African American culture, our ideologies and our morals and our beliefs. And it says the triumph of advertising in the culture industry is the compulsive imitation by consumers of cultural commodities, which at the same time they recognize as false. So basically what that's saying is in the culture industry, specifically media, they win. The only reason they win and they're able to be successful is because the people that they make the product for, us, the consumers, whoever we may be, we imitate whatever they produce. So if you see violence in a film, if you watch it enough, you're gonna become in some way, shape, or form, violent. If you see love in the film, you're gonna become more loving, and et cetera, et cetera. But it also says the advertising culture recognizes these cultural commodities as false. So if you don't take violence, if you don't take love, what's something false that people project into our society? Whatever it may be, we as consumers, we take that in, and that's how the culture industry is successful. So that's my video diary, video journal. If you have money, you have power, and you can control ideas. Thank you.